there, everybody. My name is Kate, and welcome to my channel, Trinergy Awakens Naturally. So today I want to talk to you about divine feminine and divine masculine and healing in general, and give you some insight from my perspective on what exactly is going on currently on planet Earth. Now, this is a theme that is going to be relevant for the next little while, I'm sure. So it doesn't matter. The chronological time is December of 2025. However, this is likely to be a relevant theme for a minute on our planet because it already has been, and it's going to take a little bit to pull up out of it. Currently, December 2025, we are finding that there's a lot of aggression, there's a lot of masculine type energy, and a lot of feminine type vulnerability that's happening, and a whole lot of that being in huge imbalances that look very much like the victim, the victimizer and the victim. I want to go on record though before I start with saying that when I'm saying masculine and feminine, I do not mean gendered man, gendered woman, or gendered any other way they might identify. I'm not speaking of anything having to do with the anatomy itself or the biology itself. I am talking about the masculine aspect and the feminine aspect. Ideally, we have both in us, and ideally, as healed and healthy human beings, emotionally and energetically, no matter how we're bagged up physically, we would be balanced in our masculine and our feminine traits and be moving very fluidly between when to execute a little bit more of the masculine, when to execute a little bit more of the feminine, that we would be balanced pretty much all the time. And sometimes we're going to need to really go over here and push things up a bit and move and take action, etc. And over here we're going to need to really be the receiver and quiet and soothing, etc. Ideally, whether a man, a woman, or any other gender, however a person identifies, no matter how that looks on the inside, on the inside of someone's pants, is irrelevant. I'm speaking literally to the aspects and the attributes of those genders, meaning masculine and feminine, not how they identify in their sexuality or in their gender, either one. I could care less, because we have a lot of issue around gender identification and all of this, and we just absolutely do not have the science to back up that there is gender specific behavior that comes out of a man. Therefore, when they're a man and we know they're a man, they look like this. We look the way we look in our gender identifications and our roles that we play, and what a dude is and what a woman is, etc., based on our own conditioning, our own brainwashing of what we've told each other that it is. However, we all have the ability to be very kind, loving, nurturing, etc., as well as action takers, disciplinarians, and protectors. We all have the ability to do that. It's just that we culturally, as a human society, we have pretty much taken our domineering thing through the age of Pisces and turned that into the story that you see today, which across all cultures, not everybody's treated the same. So we aren't even really able to identify, except in the United States, and I know many other places, we can say, well, this is what a woman typically is, this is what a man typically is, and yet it really doesn't have anything to do with the roles that we've assigned, or all of the adjectives that we've assigned, or all the labels that we've assigned. This is energetic, and I'm talking more from a clinical assessment as much as possible, with saying it's a balancing act of finding the balance between the two, because you don't need to dude out all the time, nor do you need to mom out all the time, either one. There's a balance in between. And so what we see in December of 2025 right now is a whole lot of aggressive action being taken upon the vulnerable crowds, the vulnerable populations, whether it be raids, whether it be whatever. I'm not trying to start a whole political discussion, the Epstein files, whatever it is. What we're seeing is that as a collective consciousness on planet Earth, for a long time, generations, thousands upon thousands of years, we've had a generational thing going, and an epoch going, of that the masculine energy got super out of balance with itself and became the taker and the doer and the I'm just going to snatch and grab everything. Whether it was masculine oriented, or male oriented or not, it's still a masculine trait. And for anybody who would tell me that men are evil, I would say that some of the most aggressive people I've ever met on the planet were women. And so this really isn't about assigning blame to one gender or another, or assigning blame at all. It's about taking accountability and seeing that global trends for hundreds and thousands of years have been to be very domineering and to, take over and to find the king and put things into an apex predator. And wherever you fall in that, good luck in creating your sub-triangle below that. And we're constantly in a battle between the sexes, between the genders, between the jobs, between the cultures, between the religions. We're in this battle that it's really a matter of balancing. That's where the battle is, that it's out of balance, and nature and the laws of nature work to balance and right itself. Water will level eventually, because that's just the way the law of gravity and the law that water obeys. It levels eventually. Even if you have it pent up on a levee in Louisiana, it eventually balances, regardless of how long it will hold, and no matter how long it does hold. These laws, eventually balancing comes, and that's what karma is. Karma is an opportunity to get it very, very viscerally that excuse me, this is a place where I was super out of balance, or where we were out of balance as a society, as a global society, a cultural society, a religious society, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Take whatever snapshot you're viewing through and put it through that understanding that it's asking us to take a look at where the imbalance was, and then do the internal introspective action, because we can't do the work for another person. We do the internal introspective action and find out what is our part in creating that imbalance. Where have I been victimized? Where have I been a victimizer? And on a global scale right now, on a very global scale, big, broad theme on the planet is the victim-victimizer thing. And that would be the masculine aspect versus the feminine aspect. And that is why you see the need for divine feminine energy to rise up and really bring the balancing, because it's been so heavily disoriented that we as a collective society have been in masculine mode. As a global society, and as a huge trend on the planet, the energy has been prevailing masculine, dominant, and overbearing, etc. Whether we were gendered as men, women, or anything in between, it does not matter. And it doesn't matter how we were procreating or who we chose to, perform these acts with. It makes no difference, because the energy itself has been heavily weighted with the masculine being the taker, being the one that's the aggressor, and turning that into a very upside down, imbalanced version of itself. And so it is necessary to bring divine feminine energy into the fore, not to make women more important, because again, I've seen some, pretty shady women that would just absolutely slice a man to pieces, or a woman, it doesn't matter. So it's about that real dominant, upside down masculine stuff, whether it's, girl, boy, whatever, it makes no difference. But that is the need to see the feminine energy rise up and really be the healer, the soother, the comforter, the one that's the nurturer. And we need both. However, right now, it's about really going into that deep introspection and seeing, where can I stand down on, this part over here that might be imbalanced, and probably is. We all have, issues with our balance like that. And where do I really bring this in and bring in the self-nurturing, and to think of a collective consciousness as being a victim of itself, to some degree, if you can think that kind of out there esoterically, that we've been a victim to our own consciousness. And those of us that are working to change that trend and understand that divine feminine doesn't mean that I, as a gendered woman, am more important, or that my work is more important. It means it's more relevant, my work, not my gender. My gender makes no difference at all. However, when we get kind of boggled with what we're seeing in front of us, and forgetting that right now we're dealing with a whole bunch of consciousness on the planet that appears to be in a polarity, and yet human collective consciousness has been one big giant victim of itself to begin with, by believing in outside stories of oppression from somewhere, whether it's a demiurge, whether it's the devil, whether it's our parents, whatever it is. We haven't learned yet, and that's what we're going through now. We haven't learned yet that, that your victimization thing, right, when you're born, you're fed the story, whatever it is, about how you don't have any power. Whoever told you whatever it was, it doesn't matter which story it went with, because it was all the old paradigm. And so the new paradigm is being installed currently, and so the story is changing. That's what we're here doing. However, everybody was a victim of this story in one way or another, no matter how they're portraying their ugly out here, or their imbalance out here, whether I'm portraying the victim out here as a person, or I'm portraying the perpetrator out here. as an attacker or an aggressor, really is irrelevant. We're all in the same system, that the system is bad. Don't hate the player, hate the game. I think that's what they say. And it's not about hating any of it. It's about identifying that is the game. And so when we pull back from observing things and then having a whole lot of thought and putting a lot of conscious, intentional on it, or making an opinion, it helps considerably to de-escalate what's happening, which is you see a lot of very aggressive attacks on vulnerable populations, etc., and especially the sexual stuff that's coming up. That is the most aggressive and dehumanizing way to really, overpower someone, is through those very intimate, deflowering kind of experiences. And I don't mean to be rude or casual about that. Victims are victims, but those are some of the most intense ways that we can dehumanize another person, is to mess with their most intimate spot of themselves in their own personal space and violate that, as well as their identity by their color or their culture, something they have absolutely no control over. So when you see that happening and it's rising up, it's very important, in my humble opinion, that we not look at that and say, oh my God, I can't believe this, oh my God, or to toss it off 11/11 and act like it isn't a big deal. This is a collective human consciousness that we are working to heal. The wounding of divine feminine by divine masculine, of the collective consciousness of humanity. It's got split off in a bunch of different individual people's actions and made a whole consciousness that's been battling itself across the table for a very long time. And as we continue to ascend and bring this up to get it out of the apex triangle, the apex predator thing, and get it into a sacred geometry triangle where enlightenment, etc., comes in, then you integrate and you bring that in, and you understand that we've been battling this consciousness, this darkness, this oppression, this devil, this demiurge, this snake, this bad guy, this whomever, whatever. It is a collective humanity's struggle. It's not just one gender. It's not just one population. There is nobody else that's more important than you. There's nobody else that's less important to you. Every one of us is important, and we will not all play together the same way. However, it is still a collective understanding. This is like trying to divorce ourselves from the body. If we had a gangrenous toe, to just cut it off and say it doesn't matter. Well, all the toes are important. They have a function, and if you cut your toe off or you cut your foot off, you're going to notice that it's not there. You don't have a complete organic body. And even if you got a bionic foot, and replaced it, it's never going to work the same as having the organic foot that humanity was born with. And we are trying desperately to look at gangrenous spots in ourselves and pretend that just lopping it off or calling it bad, or we'll just get a new one over here and we'll AI this, that's going to somehow solve the problem. And if that was the solution to the problem, I'd say great. However, it seems to me that it isn't working, and I look for performance-based belief systems, not in what I hope and pray and 1313 will go my way. I look for evidence-based theory coming true, that this is stacking up, this is what I can see, and then look into the energy to explain to me, how is this working? And when I see a huge uprising and a destabilization of what's been on the horizon energetically for a very long time, when I see all that destabilization and it's coming down, and there's a lot of violence being brought up, and a lot of the sexual overtone and a lot of abuse, it's just coming to the fore. This is a desperate need. Maybe desperate is a little bit too negative sounding. However, in my mind, I don't like to see people suffer. So there is a desperate need to identify, where am I contributing to this mentality by believing the story that yes, there is human suffering. It is absolutely happening. I'm not denying that. However, where can I actually be a kind and divine feminine energy, whether I'm in a male body, female body, or any other identification? How may I add to the collective soothing for humanity, to the soothing divine feminine energy that needs to rise up and be the healer in this? How can I let go of places where I might want to just put my foot in it and really, get busy with stomping somebody out for their opinion that I don't agree with? How can I reach into me and bring divine feminine energy to me? Even if I don't care about doing anything for anybody else, how can I nurture me and really get okay with the fact that I've been a victim somewhere along my journey, no matter who we are. Even the most dictator heavy people in the whole entire planet have been victims of something else. They already were. They're a victim of coming into Earth and learning a bad story about, the sovereignty of human beings. And so they just took theirs differently. They took a different angle to exert and squirt their understanding differently. And it's not acceptable. It's not okay. However, every single person has within them the need to really grow that ability to be in touch with the feminine energy and really feel that soothing and that comfort. We will not all get there the same. We will not all receive that the same. Some people are just way hella injured, and they're going to be difficult to, like a rabid dog, and I don't personally work with rabid dogs, and I don't work with humans that aren't quite ready for that kind of conversation, and there are quite a number of them. However, it doesn't mean that the need isn't there to reach those people that are ready to understand, as well as to identify that that's a whole separate group of people that just aren't willing to do this anymore, and they need to not be associated with me personally because they do things to try to hurt me. Okay, that's fair. That's putting a fair assessment on what's happening, while also having the vision down the road for what is continuing to happen. And what's really happening too is that this is rebalancing. The spoils of war are turning into the casualties of war, and they always have. It's just that we're starting to notice that this system that we have in place here really sucks. It's awful, and I don't like it. And the more that we take responsibility for our own behavior, our own healing, and our own agency to say, how can I effectively reach inside of me and tame my divine masculine, as well as really step up my divine feminine, or the other way around, whatever we need to do to maintain that balance and get really good at seeing where do I need to really take more action here, and where do I really need to sit down and self-soothe here, or offer some comfort here, etc. And that's done by being very introspective to begin with, and watching other people and seeing that, and separating out from places where we're gonna be doing bad math and doing imbalance really in a painful way. Because trying to learn, imagine going to school and sitting at a desk where you're gonna get poked with a cattle prod every time you ask a question or get an answer wrong. It's pretty difficult to learn under those circumstances. You'd either be very convicted to learn fast, or you'd hate it and look for a way to harm the other person. It turns into whole entire themes that you see. 1717 is 8-8, that you see exacting themselves now with their coming down, their dismantling. So my greatest message at this moment is that we're currently seeing a lot of things that look very scary to the average person. They do to me sometimes, and then I really have to pull into line and say, this is divine. There is nothing that is happening on this planet that's not allowed. There's nothing that's disavowed, or it wouldn't be here. If it's already here, then I don't have anything to do with allowing or not allowing it to be here on the earth. It was already granted access. Then okay, then let's stay and play with this, and know that me staying and playing means I'm committed to the overall objective for healing on the planet. It doesn't mean I'm committed to one specific person, because I can't make one decision that's going to be heavily weighted for the benefit of one. This is the good for all. So and as we work with ourselves about how can I be less generous in places where that's not very wise, and more generous where it is, and really always coming back in here to how do I meet the divine feminine me, to grow her, to know her, to understand her more, and to allow that healing within me to come, and allow divine feminine to wash over me when I'm feeling angry, hostile, and feeling victimized, or allow divine feminine energy to wash over me when I'm feeling about like going and victimizing somebody else, or punching them, or talking nasty about them, or whatever. And we are all guilty of that behavior. We're all humans. We all have all aspects within us. It's a matter of what am I going to emphasize more. And I encourage you to emphasize the greatest parts of you, and that will begin a natural balancing process. And there is no gangrenous part of your body that you need to eradicate. It's a matter of getting the right medicine to that part after you identify that that is a necessary component to salvage and save. There's nobody expendable on this planet. Not you, not me, not anyone. However, there are people that are expendable from our direct contact, perhaps. However, no one is just expendable off the planet. And so easing the suffering on any level that we can do by easing our own is a huge contribution in and of itself. Even if we aren't reaching out into the grid lines, ley lines, whatever, or doing crystalline work, even if we're not doing all that stuff, reaching into us and offering our own selves that divine healing and that divine soothing, that comfort, etc., then we are already bringing a huge contribution to the planet. So I hope that's helpful to you in some way, and I hope you enjoy your day no matter what part of the day you're in. And remember to get within your skin, because you're divine. It is so balanced. Your divine is balanced. It already is. It's a matter that our human mind rots around, and has to kind of play bumper cars with itself a bit, or demolition derby or whatever with other people. And yet we do know, we can feel when we get in line, we can know, and we can train that to be our baseline. It's a matter that we have to concentrate and put our efforts there instead of somewhere else that might be calling us to look at it more intensely. So take care of yourself, as I said, and get within your skin, because you're divine, absolutely beautiful, so lovely, and totally fine. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you again next time. Goodbye, beautiful friends. Mwah.